And we're on a roll with classes, and it's kind of nice with the Zoom. We can get a lot of people.
Yeah, that's the easy. Yeah, so you don't need to drive. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very nice. And then I guess I have one more question, since I'm going to introduce you, how to pronounce your first name, which I'm sure you get a bit of.
Yong Hao.
Young Hao.
Yes.
Young Hao. Okay. We're good there.
Dr. Lee, I made you the host, so you should be able to share.
Okay.
You should be all set on your end. Terry, did you send out the link to everyone in the garden club? And
no, I told them that they had to register.
Okay.
So I sent it to everyone that registered.
And how about screen? Does it come out good?
Yeah, so it looks great.
Okay.
Yeah. Our regulars usually sign on at like exactly 7 o'clock. So they'll be here. We have about 30 people signed up.
Okay, that's a good amount. Okay, how many people doing the garden?
We have, with our community garden at Le Chat, we have 50 beds that we rent
That's
out.
a lot, yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice size community garden. It's in each one's a different family, a Weston resident. And the biggest question every year is, how can we deal with these tomato blight issues? So that's the biggest thing hanging over everyone's mind right now, I think.
Okay, in Hamden, that's at Edgington Park, there's a community garden, about maybe 30 plots. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good size.
Yeah, very close to our office. So every day, almost every day, lunchtime, I just walk over there to see people working in their gardens.
Nice. Do you have a plot there or no?
No. I live in Wallingford, far away from there. So I have my backyard garden.
Yeah, and you do tomatoes and everything, right?
Yeah, tomatoes, peppers, cucumber, beans, bok choy, lettuce, spinach, corns, a lot of the different kind of the plants I grow. And the one blueberry, one grape, 2 pears.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I try to grow everything because I can collect a lot of plants when people bring to my office, check for disease problems. After I check that, if I can save that, just try to save that, put it in my garden. I don't concern about too much disease or pests because I want to look at it. Okay.
You get to try a lot of new things that way, probably.
Yeah. And also a lot of flowers too.
Nice.
How do the pears do? Do they do well?
Yeah, I just planted this year. Okay. So I saw a few flowers, but just faded, in the bear because it's the first year. I think take maybe 3 or 4 years to get fruits. Because this is from a nursery. They try to check the fire blight, but I didn't see any fire blight, so safe to put in my garden.
Fire blight can be kind of nasty. Doesn't that kill the tree?
Yeah, I think that can, first I think it might be showing the dieback, and then maybe after 1 or 2 years, big limbs infected, it can kill the whole limb and sometimes whole tree.
Yeah. Serviceberry gets that, doesn't it?
Pardon me?
Amelanchier? Like
Amelanchier, yeah, this can get some fire blight, but not like apples. Apple pears, yeah.
They get it worse.
Yeah. Someone told me, or I read it somewhere, that spirea can get it too. Was that right?
Yeah, actually, this is a bacteria that has wide host range. Okay. But some might be more tolerant, some a little bit more susceptible, yeah. But people are more concerned about on apples and the pears, yeah. Yeah, especially in orchard. This is just for ornamentals. People don't concern too much. If there's something happened, dying, just change another one. But for orchard, then it takes many, many years to get fruits.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I always have a hard time with fruit.
Mm.
Too many noises. So I know you're more diseases, but you might have heard about, is it, Christina, is it a type of fruit fly that's attacking fruits now, like late season? What was that?
On the blueberries, I can't remember what it was.
That's the like the what's that called? Yeah, that's a small, very tiny flies.
Mhm.
Yeah, software. I cannot pronounce that very well. Yeah, just like the fruit flies, but it's a different genus, different species. Yeah, this is can damage different kind of the small berries. Yeah.
Do you see that if that's getting to be a bigger problem? Do you know?
I think that maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I saw some samples come in, but after that, the last 2 years, I didn't see any people mention that. So might be
Yeah.
that's weather related. That's the possible. Yeah.
It's good to know.
Mm.
We just planted a lot of, we've connected to the community garden. We have a giving garden.
Mm-hmm.
So all the food is donated to local food pantries. But we picked earlier blooming blueberries,
Mm-hmm.
earlier season blueberries, because we thought the late blueberries were more susceptible to that fly or whatever. That's how one of the reasons why we picked certain types.
And also raspberries too. Raspberry very vulnerable to this kind of fly. And also you can see that that's a part of the insects. That's the worms stay outside, so you can see that the white like a hair coming out from berries.
It doesn't sound appetizing.
Yeah, so if you see it, you cannot eat that berry.
Ugh. Yeah, I stopped raspberries for other reasons. I couldn't keep the wasp and hornets off my raspberries. They would like eat part of it and then they would leave guards there. So they didn't want me to have any of the raspberries.
That's awful.
I know, like those big, like black and white bald faced hornets.
Oh, I'll be
They would just like,
devastated if that happens to mine.
they would just like sit on the raspberries.
You may try to spray. Yeah, you may try to spray some insecticide. Did you spray?
No, since it was like an edible, I didn't, you know. They won that round.
I tried once, but that's the birds come in and also it's hard to keep and also spread. Yeah, so I don't, and also this the berries, you need to pick up very, how to say that, just in time. Otherwise it's overwrapped, sometimes not good and fall.
That is good. All right. Lori, can you hear me? Or is that Nick? I'm just checking. I always get nervous at 6:58 and there's just, so it makes me think, do people not get the link? Hi, hey, Nicholas. Is this the link that I just sent earlier today that you're using?
Yeah.
Okay. So it should have went out fine.
Yes, we received it. I did see it.
Great.
Yep.
Let's see if I'm getting any emails.
You don't mind, I'm going to turn off the camera so you don't have to watch us eating.
Perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to ask that question. I think people are just coming late. Please. Oh, that's something else. Okay. I'm not getting any emails, so hopefully people are just signing on like right at 7. Oh, here we go.
Oops, I think I just lost. I think I just lost them. Uh-oh. Hey, Ann, I just lost them. No, it's not. No, it's not. I should know one.
Okay, good.
Hi,
Hi, is that Mary
Mary
Beth?
Beth. It's Mary Beth. Sorry. Oh gosh, sorry. Gotta move it up. I look so awful from work. I figured I better just not put my face on.
Which is fine. Yeah, Dr. Lee will be using the screen, so
Oh, great. Okay, thank you.
it'll be good. We'll just
A
have,
lot-
if everyone can just mute themselves, that would be great.
Oh.
It's in the lower left corner. You'll see a little speaker. All right, we'll just wait a few more minutes.
When you're on the screen, you swipe.
To what?
Right there.
But what if I want to see everybody?
Swipe again to the right. Go left. Left it up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you.
All right, Dr. Lee, are you ready? I guess we'll get started.
Yes.
Okay. Just
I can't hear her now.
You have to put up your volume.
I did.
yeah, if I think Mary Beth, you need to mute yourself. Do you know
Oh,
where
I'm
that is?
sorry. Oh, you can hear me? Sorry.
That's okay. If you take your mouse and go to the lower left, just hit,
Lower left. Okay.
and you'll see mute my audio. You click on that. So I just wanted to thank everyone for coming tonight. I'd like to welcome Dr. Younghao Lee from the Department of Plant Pathology and Ecology of the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station. Dr. Lee has expertise in host pathogen interactions and resistance mechanisms of fungal, bacterial, and viral diseases. He also has experience in disease diagnostics and pathogen identification. I've attended 2 of Dr. Lee's lectures previously, so I do know he's going to give you a lot of information. Don't worry too much about copying everything down. He's very generous. He's going to pass on the PowerPoint to me and I'll send it to you guys. And he's also letting us record the class tonight, so we'll be able to share that. Just a reminder to mute yourselves and enjoy the class. I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Lee. Thank you for coming tonight. I think this is timed really well since everyone's just getting all of their summer veggies in their garden plots. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Terry. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in tonight. So actually, I believe all of you very good gardener. So you already start your gardening, especially for the vegetable gardens. But when people growing vegetables, first concerning part is disease problems. So I'm a plant pathologist at the station. I'm doing the plant disease diagnosis. So almost every day receive phone calls, emails, and samples about the vegetable and flowers and also other ornamental issues. So tonight I'm going to talk about some disease control options using the organic ways. Okay, so before we talking about control disease, we need to know what is the disease. So plant disease can be counted as two different groups of causing agents. It's the first causal agents we call the biotic or infectious. That's a disease. So that's a biotic, that means that the causal agents are living organisms like fungi, bacteria, nematode, and also, I don't know if you heard that the phytoplasmas, virus, I think people already heard that. And also that's the parasitic plants. I don't know if you know that the dodder, if you see like the orangey like vines growing on the plants, that's actually it's a plant parasite on the vegetables. So that's what we call the parasite plant. So most of the biotic or infectious disease problems caused by fungi and the bacteria. There are some virus. So I will talk about this kind of the issues on vegetables. And the other group of disease actually caused by non-living causal agents. So we call the abiotic disease problems. They caused by the environment stress or some other issues like the nutrients, water, light, and also sometimes the chemical can cause some issues. Like if you use any kind of the pesticide, that's the side effects, and also herbicide can causing the issues too. So it's a two groups. So when we're dealing about plant disease problems, first we need to know which group they are. So it's a biotic or abiotic. If that's a biotic, that means this kind of problem can be spread to other plants. But abiotic disease problems only affect where they got that affected. So like the temperature, if let's get the frost, you will know that most of the plants get affected, but not spread. So if we know that what's causing the plant disease, the second part, we need to know that about the biotic disease problems, how we can manage that. So it's a very important principle in plant pathology.
Isn't it a good idea?
It's called
Make sure you're muted.
yeah, this is called the disease triangle. Disease triangle, that means three factors affect the disease problems, especially for the biotic disease problems. First is the host. Second part is the pathogen. That's the living organisms causing plant disease problems. The last one is the environment. So this is the three factors result in the plant disease problem. So that means when we manage plant disease, not just think about the pathogen, we also need to think about the host. So that means vegetables and also environment like temperature, water or sunlight, soil conditions. All these three parts we need to think about, not just think about one factor. So that means from the host parts, we can use resistant varieties or species. And for the pathogen parts, we can use this like the quarantine or sanitation, protection, or rotation. We can reduce the pathogens and also avoid that kind of the pathogens spread. For the environment, actually that's the environment can work two ways. First, they can working on the host, can increase plant resistance if we handle this correctly. The second way, that can working on the pathogen, can suppress the fungal spore germination, and also can like avoid that the pathogen spread. So if we do that the right way. So that's the environment control. If we do that the right way, we can control this host and also the pathogens. So that's what we call the disease triangle. Using this principle, we can do the disease management. So this is a concept. So it's called the integrated pest management, called IPM. So when people call into my office, always asking what kind of disease I have, the second question following that will be what kind of chemical I use. So that's when people thinking about disease, always think about the chemicals or fungicide, not think about that's the environment problem. So that means when we manage plant disease problem using this concept called integrated pest management, so that's sustainable and also using different kind of the methods combined together, like the cultural practice and some fungicide, biological ways. And also it's a very important part is the reduce the risk to the environment, and also that can like the human health issues. So on the right image, you can see that the some contents of that IPM program. First, that's we need to identify the disease problems, pest ID. And then if we know what kind of disease we handle with, so we need to prevent it and monitor it and choose certain kind of the options and act. And the last part, we need to evaluate how this method or this is like the cultural practice or fungicide is working, it's effective or not effective. So we need to evaluate and then improve that IPM program for next season. So that's what we call the IPM program. That's a concept. So that's we already mentioned from that the disease triangle. That's three factors we need to consider. That's the first one that we call the host. So when we're using it, any kind of the varieties, we need to think about disease resistance. People think about might be for the tomatoes. I want cherries. I want Roma. I want big beef. Just a different size of the fruits. But also we need to think about the resistance. When we buy the tomato seeds, you will see some characters like on the package, like that's the red square you can see. That's a tomato resistance. That's codes. So that's a V stand for that's a vertilium wilt. That's a very common disease on tomatoes and also on eggplants too. F, that's a stand for fusarium wilt. Actually, last few years, get more and more inquiries of tomato fusarium wilt. So I will talk about that later. And that's the nematode. That's not very common in this area. T for tobacco mosaic virus. That's the very common issues on tomatoes and also peppers and some other flowers too. So that's a different letters stand for different disease resistant. So when you buy seeds, you need to look at that one. So most of the right now, this is the tomato varieties, that's a hybrid. So hybrids, that means that's cross different kind of two different parents and then get this springs out. And also recently you will see a lot of the called the GMO, genetically modified organism involved in the varieties. So people don't like that because there's a concern about the food, like the human health issues. So when you buy that seeds, so you will see might be different kind of the symbols. That's the first we call the USDA organic. That's the government regulated that's the program. So that means if you use that label on your package, you have to comply with the standard USDA organic. So that's the regulated. But that's the second one called the non-GMO. That's the not government regulated. Just that means no genetically modified organism involved, but not stand for the organic. So that's the different symbols when you see, buy the seeds. Okay. And also, just like I mentioned, that the cultural practice also can increase the disease resistance and also reduce the disease severities. That's the first doing the rotation. People doing the rotation might be think about that the different kind of nutrients, different kind of vegetables they need. So that means can balance the nutrients in the soil. That's the use maximum of nutrients from the soil. And also we need to think about when we're doing the rotation, we can reduce the disease problem. So each pathogen, fungal pathogen or bacterial pathogens, they have their own host range. So that means one pathogen cannot infect all the plants. So like the Septoria leaf spot on tomato, that's a fungal pathogen species only infect the tomatoes, not the peppers, not like the bok choys, not the cucumbers. So that means some pathogens have very wide host range, some pathogens have very narrow host range. So if we know what kind of a host range each species they have, we can do that rotation. In general, we can rotate the vegetables by families, like the tomato family. So we know that the peppers and the eggplants, the tomatoes, that's the one family. Like the cucurbit family, like the squash and the zucchinis or butternuts, all these, that's the one family. So that's a different family doing the rotation, we can reduce the disease severity because that's the one pathogen only infect a certain kind of the plants. And when we're doing the rotation, we need to keep records. Although we have the very small garden, but it's hard to remember. Next year, I cannot remember what kind of plants I plant this area. So we need to take make the record and then look back what we planted. And next year, we need to plant some other thing. And for the plantings, normally people always make mistakes, just like myself and also my wife too. So they try to plant very early. Actually, my tomato peppers already in the ground. So that we planted about 3 weeks ago. So all of you already know that the last few weeks we had a very cold temperature. That's not good for the seedling growth. So even you planted early, they cannot grow. They could just stay in the soil, get stressed because it's cold temperature. So try to plant that at the right time. That's when the soil temperature raises up over 50 degrees. Right now, it's a good time to do that. And I guess most of you already put the seedlings in the ground right now. And the healthy soil, it's very important too. So that's when we cultivate our garden. So we need to add good amount of the organic matter. So normally we suggest about 3 to 5% of the organic matters in the garden soil. So we need to test the soil. The soil testing can tell you how much organic matters in your garden. How we add that to the organic matters? So we can use like this, like the plant mulch, like the straw and the hay, and also we can add some like the animal manures and the compost. All these can add some nutrients into the soil, and also that can change that the soil structures. That's the very good, like the retain the soil moist And also that's a good thing is to provide energy to the beneficial organisms in the soil. On the right upper picture, you can see a lot of bacterial fungi on the small animals live in the soil. They doing some work benefit for the plants to grow. So this is a good way to add organic matters. And in the cultural practice, so first, when we plant that the gardening, to avoid that the severe disease problems, we need to make enough space between plants. So because most of us have small gardens, so try to grow as many as the vegetables in small areas. So they try to make that very close each other. So this can cause the disease problems. So when you plant it a small seedling, maybe you see that's enough space, but when they grow up, maybe in July, in August, they just very dense canopy. There's a high humidity in the between the plants. So that's a very favorable condition for the fungal and bacterial disease. So at that time, even you spray any kind of the chemicals, it's hard to prevent, control the disease problems. So that's the good space between the plants, depend on the vegetable species. And also support the plants, just like the right upper picture. So like the tomatoes, if you put the stake on there, not falling off. So if you put no stake on it, so this is most of plants just grow very low, and then the high humidity in the canopy too. And the use mulch. So like the upper and the lower image showing that's a different kind of the mulch. First, that the mulching can retain the soil moist, control weed, and also can prevent pathogens transmitted from soil to the upper plant. So most of the fungal bacterial pathogens can spread from the soil to the upper leaves by rain splash. So that means when you cover the ground with mulch, that can avoid that the pathogens spread to the upper plants. So this way we can reduce the disease severity by using the mulch. And the watering, it's very important in plant disease management. So normally people, that's easy, just using the water hose, just using that water hose from a distance, just like upper right picture, using the overhead irrigation. Actually, that's give the pathogens in good conditions. That's the high humidity, wet plant tissues. That's give like the spore germination, and also that's a bacterial infection. They all need like the high humidity, moist conditions. That's give them a very favorable condition. So let's try to avoid its overhead irrigation. Actually, plant need water through the roots, not from the leaf. After you overhead water, that plant look very nice, very shiny and fresh, but it's not good for disease management. So water soil, not on the top. And also if that's possible, maybe using that just like the drip irrigation and the bottom middle, set the drip irrigation system. Last year I bought the one small, like the timer and also drip irrigation system. So this is a little bit investment, but it's worth to do that. And also if you don't want to spend money, maybe you can just soft drink bottle and
watch it in the kitchen.
cut the bottom off, and then put the top into the ground and then add water. So slowly water can release to the root zones. And also for the pathogen, the third part is the pathogen. First, we can avoid the pathogen introduced to your garden, to your county, to your state, to your country. So that's what we call exclusion. So that's first, when you get in any kind of seeds or plants, you need to check. Is there any kind of disease or pathogens on there? So on the right two picture, you can see first on the top, you will see on the peppers, you can see that it look like not normal, is it right? So you can see like the yellow, like the mosaic, actually it's a virus disease already on this seedling. If you buy this kind of seedling or you get this kind of seedling from your friends, you introduce the virus disease into your garden. So that virus can spread from one plant to other plant. And then lower parts, you can see the tomato, that's the fungal leaf spots already on the seedling bed. So this can spread to your other plants in the garden. So when you buy the seedlings, to look at inspect the plants, and then if that you see anything wrong, don't keep that or don't bring into your garden. Okay, sanitation. So sanitation, that means we can remove the diseased plants, because I mentioned that's the biotic disease problem caused by like a fungi and the bacterial. This can spread from infected plants to the healthy plants. So if you remove that the diseased plants or diseased plant parts from the garden, you can reduce the pathogen or disease pressure. So you can just pick up these leaves. But after you pick up these leaves, you need to put that far away or put in the trash, bagged and put in the trash. Upper picture, you can see actually it's just like I mentioned, it's in the community garden. This look like this small garden plot. They picked up the diseased plant leaves and then just put in like the big can, just in the plot. So that's not sanitation. That's just keep the plant materials in the garden, they can spread. And also after you use that any kind of the tools, you need to wash and sanitate using the bleach or alcohols to sanitate your tools, because some pathogens can spread through your tools and also soils. It's like soil-borne disease. And also that the people always using that fungicide, you can protect the your vegetable plants from disease problems. So for the organic gardens, we normally use that the organic fungicide. Yeah, so you can see that's the one that's the label called the OMRI. That's the stand for Organic Material Review Institute. That's not government regulated, but those listed products we consider as organic. Just like the neem oil, if you see that on the right picture, so you can see on the upper right, you can see that the symbol, it's a armory. That means this product is organic. That can be used for the organic purpose. But I want to mention that any kind of fungicide, conventional or organic fungicide, normally affected the fungal growth or bacterial growth. Just like I mentioned before, a lot of the living organisms that are beneficial to the plants living in the soil. When you use any kind of the fungicide, organic or conventional, sometimes affected those living organisms. Just remember this point. So this is the same for our consuming the fruits or products, vegetables from your garden, but sometimes can affect the living organisms in the soil. Okay, so this is the two slides. I just put some organic fungicide listed here. So you can see that's the active ingredient like the copper, sulfur, neem oil, and horticulture oil, like all these, and the trade name. So I just want to mention that Fungicide, there are two different names. That's the one is called the trade name. The other one we call the common name. Common name, let's include the active ingredient. So what's the active ingredient? But the trade name, that might be the same active ingredient produced by a different company. They can give different trade names. But we need to look at what is the active ingredient, although they may have different trade names. So on the right column, you will see what kind of disease they can control, because I mentioned I will share these slides with you, so you don't need to read all of them, and also don't need to write down. So yeah, there are some like the other organic fungicide available you can use, but I mentioned that the fungicide use only can protect healthy parts, not curative. So that means when you see the fungal spots already on the leaves, those spots always on the plant leaves. They cannot disappear. Okay, so this is my first half of my presentation. So I just want to go through some common vegetable diseases with you. So first I want to talk about the tomatoes. So this is septoria leaf spot is very common. I can say that's the most common disease on tomatoes. If you grow tomatoes, you will see that. So it's the first, when you see that the septoria leaf spot, first look at that the spot. On the right upper picture, you can see the brown spots. In the late stage, you will see like a light gray center on the, but by the arrow, you can see the center a little bit like the gray center. If you have the hand magnifier, you can see that the black dots, like the black peppers, just sprayed on the next part. So that's the fungal fruiting bodies. But this fungal leaf spot is very small. That's a lot. And also sometimes yellow halo around that's a brown spot. Those kind of fungal infection can cause the yellowing leaves and the drying out. Just like left picture, I circle that, highlight that, so you can see start from bottom and then develop the upward. So that's a very common disease. Although this disease cannot kill the plants, but they can reduce the yield because most of the leaves turn yellow and defoliated. And also can infect the stem too. For the control of this disease, just like I mentioned, you can use fungicide. I just showed up in last two slides. But the most important thing is if you can make that the good enough space between the plants and provide that good air circulation, reduce the humidity. So you can reduce the disease severity. Because the fungal infection, they need high humidity conditions. If we can give them drier conditions, not high humidity conditions, we can reduce the infection. So normally I suggest to just remove the old leaves from the soil line, normally about maybe a foot or maybe 18 inches from the soil line ground. Old leaves, just like this, maybe about 4 feet tall, you can reduce maybe a quarter height of the old leaves from bottom. This way you can improve the air circulation. So that the air can go through, that the canopy, reduce the humidity inside. And also they can pick off the diseased plant materials. Yeah, this is one similar kind of the disease, but not a fungal disease. We call it a bacterial leaf spot. So that's also, you may see that in the field. So look like on the left picture. So you can see that the brown spots look like that's the septoria leaf spot, but that's a gray center. All that's a dark brown spots similar size, but no gray center, no fungal fruiting bodies on there. This bacterial disease also infected the fruits. On the right picture, you can see the brown spots on the fruits. So that's not common like that the septoria leaf spot, but occasionally you will see that. But the couple products, you can use that, control both septoria leaf spot and also that's a bacterial leaf spot. Early blight, this is just occasionally we can see in the garden, but not very common. This is on the left bottom image. You can see that the spot a little bit larger than septoria leaf spot. So that's like the, and also concentrate the rings on the lesions and also no gray center. So that's the difference from septoria leaf spot. But the important thing I need to mention is one sample I received that on the upper left, you can see that a small seedling can be infected by early blight. So when you buy seedlings, if you see some brown lesions on stems or brown spots on leaves, you may need to look at that, if that's early blight or late blight. So I will show you what that late blight look like. Just this one look like late blight, actually not. It's early blight. Now on the right, that's the infected fruits, showing that's the sunken lesions on fruits. So this is a late blight. If you grow tomatoes for maybe over 15 years or 10 years, so you may remember that. So we had a very big epidemic in 2009 of late blight. After that, sometimes you may see that in late season or maybe on August, like the very late season, but cannot affect the tomato plants too much. But at 2009, it started very early, destroyed most of the tomato plants in the state. So that's the picture. You can see that all that the tomato plants just collapsed. So we call the blight. Blight like just like burned on the fire. So that's the lesion is very large. So you can see the left bottom picture, like the dark brown lesions. Normally you will see that the white mold at the edge of the leaves. That's the very good sign of this late blight. And also infected the stems on the right upper picture, you can see the brown lesions on stems. And on the right bottom, you will see fruit infected. That's just get rot, so you cannot consume that. Yeah, as I mentioned, that's the late blight can infect the seedlings. Late blight over winter only in the potato tubers. So that's a late blight can infect the tomato and also potato. This can overwinter in potato tubers, not in the soil directly. So you can see on the right picture that in April, people sell, that's a nursery or greenhouse selling that's a seedlings. That's look like that's infected the tomato plant on the left, the potato plants on the right. All these two samples in the same from same greenhouse. So don't buy this kind of the seedling. Another disease problem you may see during the seedling stage, we call the Rhizoctonia damping off. So when the seedling bed is too wet, or maybe when you grow tomato from seeds in your house or basement, you may see some just leaves just curling of leaves and then stunted growth. You may think about look at the stems, at the base of the stems and the roots. We call the damping off. That's called the Staphylococcus gray leaf spot. It's not new disease, but in recent year, we get more and more this kind of inquiries. Look like Septoria leaf spot, but that's a different fungus can causing that like the irregular brown spots, like the button, some center turning gray too, but the fungal species is different. But this like the Septoria leaf spot only infect the leaves, sometimes stems, but won't kill the plants. Powdery mildew, most of people can tell from that the white mold on the leaf surface. So that's the powdery mildew on tomatoes. Recently get more and more tomatoes get infected. But the good thing is that some tomato varieties resistant to powdery mildew. So if you want to buy some resistant ones, you may find some resistant varieties. It's a botrytis blight, not a common problem in field, but if you grow tomato plants in greenhouse, you may see that, like the botrytis blight. So you can see large brown lesions from the edge on the left, on the leaves, and also can causing that a fruit rot on the right, on the top. On the right bottom, we call that ghost spots, like the small, like the light green spots. Actually, that's just infection, but it didn't cause that's the fruit rot. So just like I mentioned, it's not very common in the field because they need a very high humidity condition, humid conditions. Anthracnose is a common disease problem, but that's not early season. That's normally that's the late summer you will see that, especially when you harvest that, that's tomatoes and put onto your kitchen counter, you may see this kind of symptoms. Some sunken lesions started, and then if you keep that for maybe 2 or 3 more days, you will see the mold growing on there. That's anthracnose infect the fruits in the garden, and then showing the symptom when that's a tomato matured. So this is very difficult to control. This is depend on the weather conditions when the bearing fruits. So this is a fungal disease. But this is a very common problem we call the blossom end rot. So the people always call in how I can handle that. Actually, this is a calcium deficiency. We can say that, but the problem is that the unbalanced water. So when plants suffered maybe dry conditions and also too wet conditions, the root system cannot pick up good amount of the calcium from the soil. Although calcium available in the soil, the root system cannot pick up. So that's why showing that the symptom, like that the bottom showing that the black. There's some variety more resistant, some is more vulnerable. So that's the common problem, especially when the first and the second set fruits are very susceptible to this kind of disease. After that, maybe third and the upper part of the fruits, you may not see that. So that's always try to separate its energy. Some energy to the leaves, some energy to the fruits. But if root system cannot pick up enough that's a calcium, there's not enough calcium sent to the fruits. So that's why showing that's a symptom. That's a catfish, that's another abiotic disease problem. Actually, that happened sometimes when flowers and the pollination. That's a temperature very cold. Cold temperature can affect the pollination. So that's showing the symptom like that. We call the catfish. It's not a fungal, not bacterial disease. It's the abiotic disease problem. Yet sun scald also that's another abiotic disease problems on tomato. Actually, this is from my garden. Last year we had a very dry and hot summer. I think you may saw that one too. So, like normally that's the fruit on the sun-faced side, showing that's kind of the light brown color dried out like burnt. So because that's the very strong sunlight, and also combined with the drought conditions. So that means not enough water to support that part. So that's the sun scald. And if you grow the tomato seedlings in greenhouse, you may see that's called edema. Sometimes the high humidity conditions, too wet soil condition, you will see like the browning on the stems, sometimes also on the leaves too. So that's normally, this picture I took that from a nursery in greenhouse. Yeah, I mentioned that's a fusarium wilt. How I can identify this fusarium wilt? So first, on the left, you may see that even you watered a lot, but you see that the drooping leaves, that's possibly because that's the fusarium wilt. How I can check that? So if you can sacrifice that to the plant, just a cut of the stem, maybe just a cross section, or that's like the cut horizontally. So you can see that the browning of vascular tissues on the right picture on the arrow. At the arrow, you will see that's a browning of vascular disease. This is the vascular disease. That's different from this early blight, late blight, or septoral leaf spot. That's the systemic. So that's the one part infected, that's the pathogen can spread all the plants. So that's the only way you can do that, pull this out. If you want to start with resistant varieties, check that's the cultivar. There are some varieties resistant to this disease. This pathogen can stay soil, survive in the soil 5, 6, 7 years. So that's the problem. So that means no any chemicals can kill them. So if you see that kind of problem in your garden, next year, try to find the resistance varieties. Yeah, there are some virus disease. Yeah, just showing the symptom. I just mentioned one point. Virus disease also systemic. So that means if you see this one leaf showing the symptom, so that means virus already in the whole plant. So that's another kind of the virus disease on tomatoes. And also this is called the impatient necrotic spotted virus. I want to mention that this is called the INSV. This virus that has very wide host range, can infect different kind of flowers in nurseries and also a lot of different kind of vegetables. So when greenhouse growers, they grow flowers, vegetable seedlings in the same house, they may get that's cross infected. So when they sell, that's a tomato seedlings can carry virus disease with that seedling. Here I want to mention that this look like a virus disease, but that's not. That's the herbicide injury. People always bring in this kind of the samples, asking what kind of virus is this. So just make sure when you apply herbicide into your lawn, or maybe flower garden, try to kill weed. Be careful, find the calm weather conditions, no wind, avoid that's a chemical drift into your garden. That's very important. And also, when you're using any kind of the grass clippings, if you want to mulch your garden, sometimes people use the grass clippings, but make sure your lawn never use the herbicide. If you use the herbicide, the residuals, they can affect your seedlings too. Like the pepper virus, I already showed you this one. I don't want to go through too much of that. This is the INSV. This is on pepper plants too. Yeah, this one I need to talk about that. So that's a bacterial leaf spot on peppers. This is a very common disease on peppers. First, you may see that on the left top image, you will see the brown spots and with yellow halo. On the lower surface, you will see the water soaking. This bacterial disease can be transmitted through seeds. On the right bottom picture, so you can see the seed germinate, the seedling come out, already have symptoms on there. So that means this seed already infected. So that's start from infected seeds, seedlings, and then those seedlings transplanted in your garden and start spread. Normally spread through that rain splash and also the water splash. This one also infect the fruits on the right upper picture. You can see that. Another common disease that might be not in a home garden or community garden, but in the vegetable field, you may see that's a Phytophthora blight. That is also that infected stems can cause in all whole the plant, all whole plant that's drooping and dying. You will see that the stems turning brown, dark brown color, and also causing that the fruit rot on the right picture. You will see the white mold on the rotted fruits. There are some other kind of symptom you may see on the peppers. So on the left picture, this is the fungal disease called Alternaria fruit rot. It's the blackening, softening, and then there's some black and white. There's a mold growing on there. The right picture, actually, it's an insect damage called broad mite damage, like the distorted fruits, very hard. So that's the insect mite damage. Anthracnose, just like the tomatoes, the pepper also can have this kind of disease problem. Sun scale, I already showed you tomato. This one on peppers, the same. It's because it's a strong sun and the drought conditions. On the eggplant, it's the most common problem. It's called Bertillon wilt. On the left picture, bottom, you can see the leaf drooping, yellowing. If you cut the stems, you will see on the top left picture, like the brown discoloration on the vascular tissues. On the right picture, you may see that the called the Phomopsis blight, another fungal disease. This is the locally infected, like the brown spots. You can see this is the Phomopsis blight also can damage the fruits too, but not very common in this area. Basal downy mildew, I just want to say that's a few words on that. It's a very common disease on the basil. Normally, how I handle that, if I grow basils, I just grow basils in container. I don't put in the garden. So it's hard to control the weather. That's the cold, little bit cold weather, cold night condition and the wet condition. This kind of disease spread all over. So if you put the basil in the container during the night, rainy or wet conditions, you can take in your sunroom or in your room during the night. And during the day, you can take out, avoid its high humidity during the night. This basil downy mildew also can be seed transmitted. On the left, this is downy mildew. Also, another bacterial disease on basils also can be carried in through the seeds. That's on the right, you can see that. I don't want to go through too much. Okay, the two more slides on here. This is just like I mentioned, I work at the Agriculture Experiment Station. It's a government agency. We provide different kinds of public services. First, it's an insect information office. We do the insect identification. If you have problem in your garden on the insects, you can contact us. And also we do in the plant disease diagnosis. That's my office. I'm working in this office. Also, we do in the soil testing and the tick testing. The last few years ago, we started this program. If you have tick issues, bite, or maybe concerned about that Lyme disease, you can bring that to the tick samples into our station. So all these services are free. So it's a government agency. This is for all from your tax money. We have two office locations, one in New Haven, another one in Windsor. So you can feel free, you can use this either site. So this is my office. I want to say that there are a lot of the information you can find. That's the first you can find from our webpage. It's a Plant Disease Information Office webpage. How you can find, if you can Google that, CAES/PDIO, you will find our webpage. The first section, you can find how you can send us samples, how to contact us. The second part, you will find a lot of fact sheet. So common disease problems, how we can control, you can find from here. That's called the fact sheet. What's new? I normally update this one maybe once a month or twice a month. The fourth part, we call the image gallery. Most of these images I showed you this evening, you can find from this section called the image gallery. If you see this, some images look like the problem in your garden, you can click that's the disease name. You can link you can be linked to that's a fact sheet. You can get more information. It's a very useful website. So try to visit us. And then if you have questions, just call me. I think that I have a few minutes left. So if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer it. I will stop sharing.
I know there are questions because we always get them in the garden.
Okay, so if you have questions, feel free, unmute yourself.
I have a question. I'm Diana Muller.
Mhm.
I'm not on here visually, but my quick question is, I joined a couple minutes late, and I know you started talking about the organic fungicides.
Mhm.
Do you recommend doing something prophylactically, or would you wait until there's a problem?
Yeah, so first, that's I mentioned, when you use any fungicide, you have to use that as the prevention. So that means you need to start early. So that's why I'm always ask people to keep your record each year, to try to put some words on the note. And then you will know what kind of problem last year. And then this year we just started, we can start to prevent it. If you see septorial leaf spot last year, definitely you will see septorial leaf spot this year too. So you need to start early. Normally, when you read the labels, people label always say, when you see any sign of disease, you can start to spray. Sometimes that's too late. When you see one spot, might be already some leaves already infected, because that's what we call the latent period. Infection and showing the symptom take several days, sometimes maybe 7 days or 10 days. So that means even right now, you will see that the very healthy leaves, but possibly already infected. So that's what we call the latent period. Just like a human being get infected with virus, we carry virus, but no symptoms. So that's what we call the latent period. So why say that start early if you have that kind of disease problem history.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, so I will share my slides. So I will send my my presentation in PDF file to Terry. I think that she will share this presentation to you. So
Thank you so much. That was a lot of information. I know it looks like everything's out to get your tomatoes and other vegetables, but you can still have a great crop. Just follow the advice Dr. Lee gave. All right, no more questions. All right, thank you so much, Dr. Lee.
okay, good. Okay, thank you all for joining.
All right, I'll talk to you later. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Mhm.